The Hall of Concord hung in the emptiness above Deneb, a cathedral of glass and light large enough to cradle a continent. Every wall shimmered with starfields, every floor pulsed with energy drawn from suns, and in the middle, like a defiant stain on perfection, stood a single chair sized for a human. Around it, 20 alien delegations murmured in scents, hums and thought waves that rippled through the air like perfume. The galaxy had gathered to discuss one question. What, exactly, was to be done about Earth? General Marcus Reeve waited by that lonely chair, coffee mug balanced against the edge of the table. He looked disarmingly ordinary in his black service uniform, boots dull from use, a faint stain across one cuff. His eyes carried the lazy warmth of someone more interested in sunrise than politics, but his stillness made the chamber uneasy. The Vor Emperor, scaled, radiant, 8 feet tall, tilted his head as though inspecting a curious pet. "You are humanity's sole representative?" Marcus smiled. "Budget cuts. You know how it is." Laughter fluttered among the delegates. Even the crystalline DRIL shimmered approvingly. The Emperor did not laugh. "Your species has multiplied without permission, General. You mine asteroids in imperial sectors." Marcus stirred his coffee, unbothered. "We also leave tips. Usually in ore." The translators struggled to capture the human sarcasm, and several dignitaries blinked, uncertain whether to be offended or amused. A whisper of unease passed like static through the chamber. Humans had joined the Galactic Concord only 20 years ago, but they had spread faster than anyone anticipated, colonies sprouting on moons and derelict stations, like weeds through metal cracks. The Emperor's voice rolled out, deep and measured. "Expansion is tolerated until it becomes trespass. The Empire requests clarification of your intentions." Marcus looked up, his expression polite. "Our intentions? Same as yours, Majesty. To live long enough to be misunderstood." The Archonseer, a luminous being whose face shifted like oil on water, spoke softly. "You hide behind riddles, human." "Only when the truth's impolite," Marcus replied, that easy grin still fixed in place. The council screens flickered to life behind him, displaying maps of contested sectors. Thin blue lines marked human settlements inching toward the border of the Vor Empire. To most of the gathered species, it was simply political drift. To the Empire it was provocation. The Vor Emperor flexed his claws. "Your colonies violated treaties drawn before your species even reached orbit. You act as though the void belongs to you." Marcus took a slow sip. "It doesn't. We just rent the corners no one wanted." Another ripple of laughter, nervous this time. Humor had become a human weapon, unpredictable and impossible to counter. No other species could layer mockery inside courtesy quite like they did. The drained scholar, all tendrils and clicking teeth, leaned forward. "Your people possess a curious trait, General. You joke during reprimand. Is that shame or defiance?" "Habit," Marcus said lightly. "Back home we learned that if you can laugh, you're still breathing." The seer's gaze deepened, old light turning somber. "And if you stop laughing? Then it's someone else's turn to worry." A hush. Even the translators hesitated. The Emperor tapped the table once, talons cutting small scars into the surface. "Enough theater." Humanity was summoned to explain military presence near the Orion Spur. "Answer directly." Marcus set his mug down with exaggerated care. "Of course. Before I answer a question, has the Empire ever misfired a mining drone?" The Emperor's nostrils flared. "Irrelevant." "Humor me." Silence, then reluctant nods from aides. "Machines fail. Accidents occur." Marcus's voice thinned to something quieter, colder. "One of those accidents erased a civilian station orbiting Luna, our moon. 812 dead. Families. Children. You filed it as debris control." The word Luna carried no weight for the aliens, yet the way he said children made even the stone-skinned Goric lean back. The Emperor sneered. "A malfunction cannot be considered aggression." Marcus's smile returned, gentle as dawn. "See, that's the thing about humans. We have this old saying. Once is accident, twice is coincidence, 3 times as enemy action. I'm still counting, but my patience usually ends before 3. Low murmurs rippled across the chamber. The seer's voice rose again, more careful now. General Reeve, do you mean to accuse the Galactic Empire of attacking our homeland? Marcus finished for her. Yes. That's exactly what I mean. The word homeland struck like a detonation. The Emperor's scales brightened in fury. Earth is a distant backwater. Do you imply we would waste resources on such dust? Marcus's tone stayed maddeningly civil. You already did. Just didn't realize it. A hollow screen flared behind him, showing grainy footage, a mining drone tumbling, then the sudden burst of light over the lunar surface. Tiny dots of human ships rushed toward it, too late. Gasps filled the hall. The Emperor's aides scrambled for denials, but Marcus spoke first. We buried them under starlight. Said a few words. Promised never to forget who pulled the trigger. The DRIL emissary, voice like breaking ice, murmured. Surely you seek compensation, not conflict. Marcus's eyes glimmered with something unreadable. Compensations for broken furniture. We're talking about ghosts. For the first time, no one spoke. The chamber's artificial gravity seemed heavier. Behind the stillness, subtle details betrayed the human's control. How he had timed his words to the council's pulse cycles, how he'd let silence stretch just long enough to make them squirm. The Emperor leaned forward, voice low. You threaten the Empire? Threaten? Marcus tilted his head as if honestly considering it. No. We're far too polite for that. I'm merely letting you know that the next conversation we have may sound louder. The drained scholar's quills flared. Are you declaring war? Marcus shrugged. We don't declare wars anymore. We just end misunderstandings. The Emperor rose to his full height, fury radiating. You would risk annihilation over an error? Marcus met his gaze, unblinking. We don't measure loss the way you do. We measure home. And someone cracked ours. Around them, delegates whispered translations into 100 languages, but meaning transcended them all. Humans were unpredictable, too emotional, too stubborn, too human. Yet there was something ancient in the general's posture, something that spoke of oceans crossed by sails, cities rebuilt after fire, species that refused to die even when planets fell. The Archon-seer whispered to no one in particular. A race that laughs at pain will one day make gods tremble. Marcus gathered his datapad, calm again. Well, this has been enlightening. I'll transmit Earth's formal position shortly. Please ensure your communications arrays are listening. He lifted his mug in mock toast, a fragment of old human ritual. To understanding. The Emperor's jaw tightened. If you leave this hall without resolution, General, you doom your people. Marcus's grin softened into something almost kind. That's the funny part, Majesty. You already did. He turned and walked toward the starlit exit, his boots echoing across the crystal floor. Behind him, the council dissolved into chaos, voices clashing, translators failing, alarms whispering through the walls. The seer watched him go, feeling the thin tremor in the cosmic weave, the first shiver before a storm. Outside the viewport, Deneb flared brighter, as though the star itself had sensed what the galaxy had just unleashed. And somewhere beyond that light, unseen but inevitable, engines whispered awake, answering the human general's quiet promise. The council chamber had emptied hours ago, but its echo still lingered, voices of outrage, disbelief, and that faint undercurrent of fear that humans always left behind. The holographic windows showed Deneb's burning light rippling across the polished floor. The Vor Emperor remained seated on his crystalline throne, claws tapping, eyes fixed on the empty space where General Marcus Reeve had stood. Around him, aides spoke in bursts of static, relaying intercepted transmissions from Earth's diplomatic channels. The Empire had expected noise. It had not expected silence. Somewhere between those silences, humanity had gone quiet, and that quiet frightened everyone more than their laughter ever had. Hours later, in orbit above Deneb, aboard the flagship Eisenhower, Marcus stood before a round table projecting flickering blue faces. Earth's defense ministers, the Lunar Coalition chief, and a handful of admirals. His expression was calm, but the warmth in his tone had cooled to something surgical. "They laughed," he said softly. "They thought Luna was an accident." Minister Zhang's voice crackled through static. "We have confirmation, General. The mining drone's ID traces back to the Imperial Resource Bureau. They scrubbed the record 2 days after the incident." Marcus didn't look surprised. Of course they did. Empires always clean the crime scene before sending condolences. Admiral Coates leaned forward, her face pale in the projection's light. "You pushed them hard today. If they think we're mobilizing—" "They already think that," Marcus interrupted, lifting his coffee again. "What matters is what they feel." He set the mug down. "And right now they feel doubt. Doubt is the crack before collapse." On the screen someone muttered, "You sound like Machiavelli." Marcus smirked. "He'd call us amateurs." Outside, human ships glided silently across the stars, hulls painted black to swallow light. Their movements were deliberate, patient, the choreography of a species that had learned war by necessity, not desire. Inside the Eisenhower, the hum of the reactor sounded almost like breathing. He turned from the holograms toward the observation pane. Below, the Emperor's armada drifted like ornaments, gleaming vessels of arrogance. "They think we'll send a letter," he murmured. "Instead, we'll send a mirror." The communication array flickered alive. A channel request, galactic frequency, high priority. The Emperor himself. Marcus straightened, buttoned his collar, and signaled for a secure relay. The Emperor's image materialized, vast and luminous, golden armor reflecting starlight. His voice struck like thunder across the link. "General Reeve, you have accused the Galactic Empire of deliberate aggression. This council demands an explanation before further diplomacy collapses." Marcus's expression remained composed, but his words sharpened. "There's no accusation, Majesty. Only arithmetic." "Arithmetic?" The Emperor growled. Marcus lifted a hand, and data holograms swirled to life. Orbital logs, distress calls, voice fragments. One mining drone, 200 meters long, exploded over Luna Station. 812 dead. 1,600 displaced. 3 generations scarred. Add those together, and you get an answer you can't afford to ignore. The Emperor scoffed. "Collateral mishaps occur in every quadrant. It was not aimed at you." "That's the part that bothers us most," Marcus said quietly. "You didn't even aim." He let the silence linger. In that silence lived every ruined city humanity had ever rebuilt. The Emperor leaned forward, shadows slicing across his scaled face. "If you believe yourselves injured, the Concord provides reparations." Marcus's smile was weary, patient, deadly. "Reparations are for glass. We bury people." The Emperor's voice dropped to a hiss. "You would threaten an empire over a mechanical failure?" "Threaten?" Marcus repeated the word, tasting it like a foreign flavor. "No. I'm just clarifying definitions. Where we come from, attacking home soil, intentionally or not, is how wars start. And we tend to finish what we start." Across the command deck, his officers pretended not to listen, though every eye watched him. They knew the pattern. Begin polite, end biblical. The Emperor exhaled smoke through clenched teeth. "Your bravado amuses me, General. Do you truly believe humanity could challenge the combined armada of the Galactic Empire?" Marcus turned slightly toward the viewport, where a sliver of the Earth fleet drifted against the void, invisible to alien sensors. "No, Majesty," he said softly. "We don't challenge armadas. We erase them." A sudden flicker cut the line, leaving only static. His officers exhaled in the heavy quiet that followed. Coates finally broke it. "That was a declaration." Marcus shrugged. "Only if he's listening closely." Down on Deneb, panic rippled through the Emperor's court. The Alien Intelligence Division scoured human communications, trying to parse idioms that made no logical sense. "We don't start fights, we finish conversations. We're bringing the storm to the tea party. Checkmate's just another word for good morning." Translators argued. Philosophers debated the meaning of human sarcasm protocols. No two could agree whether they were witnessing diplomacy or doom. Meanwhile, on the Eisenhower, Marcus convened his final briefing. The air smelled faintly of ozone and brewed coffee. He projected a rotating map of the Deneb sector. 12 Empire outposts marked in red, each paired with a faint blue shimmer. Every blue dot, he explained, is a communications array infected with our software. They'll shut down the instant we transmit. A young ensign frowned. Sir, isn't that an act of war? Marcus finished. Depends on your sense of timing. Right now it's just insurance. The crew chuckled uneasily. They'd learned long ago that humor was their general's second language, and his camouflage. Marcus stepped closer to the projection. They think they killed a few hundred of us. What they really did was wake a species that spent its entire history trying not to die. We've fought plagues, ice ages, gods, and ourselves. And somehow we're still here. You know what that means? No one spoke. He answered himself anyway. It means the universe has run out of ways to scare us. He paused, hand hovering over the console. His reflection ghosted in the glass, tired eyes, faint scar across his jaw, a soldier too human to be worshipped, too dangerous to ignore. Transmit the file, he said quietly. The signal rippled across subspace, encrypted, elegant, unstoppable. Every Imperial relay received it, opened it, and began to hum. Not a weapon, not yet. Just information. Proof of guilt, wrapped in human handwriting, addressed politely to the Emperor. Minutes later, the Emperor watched the message unfold before him. Marcus's calm face, the blue planet Earth shining behind. Majesty, Marcus's recorded voice said. You once asked about our intentions. They're simple. We don't seek conquest or tribute. We seek the quiet our dead deserve. You can help by stepping back, or by vanishing. The message ended. The Emperor stared at the empty air, then at the stars outside his window, realizing how small the light of Deneb looked when compared to the cold glow of Sol. He whispered to no one. What kind of species sends condolences in the form of a countdown? Above him, in the stillness of the void, the human fleet drifted unseen, every ship silent, every weapon asleep, yet ready. Marcus Reeves stood by the viewport aboard the Eisenhower, expression unreadable, the starlight cutting silver across his face. He raised his mug in quiet salute to the distant Emperor. See you soon. The mug's reflection glimmered once, then the stars blinked, as though something vast had just opened its eyes. Aboard the Eisenhower, night had no meaning. The bridge lights glowed low amber, the hum of power a heartbeat under metal skin. Outside, Deneb burned cold and white, and somewhere beyond its glare the human fleet drifted invisible, ships silent as guilt. General Marcus Reeves stood before the wide viewport, jacket unbuttoned, coffee cooling beside his hand. For an hour he'd said nothing. He was watching the stars the way a surgeon studies a pulse before the first cut. Commander Coates entered quietly. They've doubled their patrols around the capital world. Looks like they're expecting retaliation. Marcus didn't turn. Good. Fear sharpens their sensors. Keeps them looking outward instead of inward. She hesitated, uneasy. You really think they'll call our bluff? He smiled faintly. Coates, the moment they believe we have a bluff is the moment we've already won. He finally looked at her. Calm, unreadable. The humor in his eyes was something polished thin by centuries of human habit. The smile you wore before doing something irreversible. He walked to the tactical display. 12 crimson beacons blinked where Imperial fleets sat poised. Across them, smaller blue signals pulsed. Human stealth frigates already woven among shipping lanes, ghosted from scanners by code that pretended to be debris. They still think we're negotiating, he murmured. Let's not disappoint them. At his gesture, the holographic map zoomed in on a single planet, Vora Prime. Target 1. Their communications cradle. Cut that, and the rest of the Empire goes deaf. The crew stared in reverent silence. To them, he was part myth, part machine, the man who laughed in briefings yet never miscounted a casualty. He raised his mug, sniffed the bitter steam, and said, Let's send the Emperor a smile. Below, in the Imperial Command Citadel, panic simmered under ceremonial calm. The Vor Emperor's advisors crowded around the hollow dais. Reports spilled through translators. Sensor anomalies, missing probes, false alarms. No confirmed human fleet, but ghosts flickered across data grids like a heartbeat out of rhythm. "They're toying with us," hissed the drained scholar. "Misdirection. Psychological warfare." The Archon seer, translucent and old as mist, whispered, "No. They are preparing." The Emperor's jaw flexed. A primitive species cannot outthink the Empire. The seer's gaze drifted to the distant stars. Perhaps they are not thinking. Perhaps they are remembering. A soft chime interrupted. The Emperor's private comm. A new message, encrypted beyond their own algorithms, pulsed open into the air. General Reeves' face appeared, serene, haloed by the blue of Sol's light. "Majesty," he said pleasantly, "I hear you're expecting us. Thought I'd call ahead, manners and all." The Emperor's tendrils twitched in fury. "Withdraw your fleets, human. You trespass upon sovereign space." Marcus's grin widened. Patient, surgical. "Sovereign space? We tried that idea once on Earth. Drew lines, built walls, fought about them for a few millennia. Then we realized borders are just temporary lies between wars. You dare lecture the Empire on civilization?" "Oh, no lecture, Majesty. Just context." He sipped his coffee. "You see where we come from. We learn to smile before we strike. It's polite. Gives the other side a fighting chance to prey." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving a static hiss that felt like a heartbeat stopping. The Emperor's hand slammed the console. Find them. But finding humans was like trying to see the wind. On the Eisenhower, Marcus watched a countdown bloom along the wall. Operation Homefire. Every second dropped like a stone. He walked the rows of crew stations, pausing by a young ensign whose hands trembled over the console. "First combat tour?" Marcus asked. "Yes, sir." He leaned closer, voice soft. "You'll do fine. Just remember, fear keeps you human. But never let them see you lose your humor. That's when monsters start winning." The boy nodded, straightened. Marcus clapped his shoulder once and moved on. "Status?" he called. "Lantern virus confirmed in all Imperial systems," Coates reported. "Their relay codes are compromised. They won't even know who shut the lights off." "Good. Let's dim the stars then." Across the void, a chain of satellites winked out one by one. The Empire's command lattice, once flawless, folded in on itself, messages looping, fleets drifting blind. At first the aliens thought it a storm of cosmic radiation. Then the seer whispered, "No storm. A design." Marcus watched data flicker into chaos. "You know, Coates," he mused. "My grandmother used to say revenge is best served cold. We just upgraded the freezer." Her laugh was thin but real. "You're terrifying when you're calm, sir." He glanced her way. "Anger's a poor strategist. Politeness lasts longer." Alarms blossomed on the Imperial flagship as systems froze mid-orbit. Crews shouted in panic. Ships collided gently like sleepwalkers in the dark. The Emperor rose, eyes wide. "What have they done?" Reeves' voice echoed suddenly through every open channel, polite, almost apologetic. "Just returning the courtesy, Majesty. You blacked out one of our skies once. Thought we'd return the gesture." The Emperor's command hall fell silent, except for the faint hum of dying power. Back aboard the Eisenhower, the bridge was bathed in ghostlight. Marcus stood motionless as the first reports came in. No resistance, no counterfire. Only confusion. His plan had worked too well. For a heartbeat, he almost pitied them. Almost. Coates approached carefully. "Orders." He exhaled. "Hold position. Let them panic. War's not about who shoots first, it's about who realizes they've already lost." Through the viewport, debris drifted like silver dust, glinting in Deneb's light. Marcus watched it with the calm of a man staring at weather. "Send our next message," he said. "Broadcast fleet-wide." She nodded, fingers moving. Moments later, his voice rolled across the vacuum to every listening ear. human or alien. To all Imperial forces, he said evenly. Consider this a demonstration, not destruction. We shut off your lights to remind you how fragile comfort is. Next time, we won't be so gentle. Earth does not start wars, but we do end misunderstandings. The transmission faded, leaving only the quiet hum of engines. In the Emperor's shattered command room, the seer turned to him with eyes of pure light. They warned us with smiles. The Emperor stared into the darkness, swallowing his empire. Then may the stars save us from their laughter. High above, Marcus Reeve stood alone before the viewport, coffee steaming in his hand, reflection split between starlight and shadow. His lips curved in that same infuriating half-smile. Somewhere behind it waited the storm. The first human strike came without sound, only the slow collapse of light as the Imperial flagship lost its starboard half to an invisible force. No beams, no explosions, only sudden absence, as though reality had blinked and forgotten a detail. In its wake, thousands of ships flickered, caught in the tidal pull of gravity wells humans had engineered specifically for this moment. Operation Homefire had begun. From the bridge of the Eisenhower, General Marcus Reeve watched the enemy fleet disassemble like a broken constellation. The void glowed with the afterimage of things no longer there. He felt no triumph, only the quiet weight of inevitability. Around him, officers worked in practiced silence, an orchestra of composure. Humanity had spent its history perfecting that tone, calm while the world ended. Commander Coates's voice was steady but low. First strike confirmed. 3 Imperial task forces disabled. Minimal civilian interference. Marcus nodded once. Minimal isn't none. Send med drones to debris zones. We don't need martyrs, just survivors. She hesitated. Sir, some will see this as mercy. Good, Marcus said, eyes fixed on the fading light. Let them remember which side offered it. Across the sector, the Empire's armadas scrambled. Blind, disoriented, and leaderless, they fired at sensor ghosts and each other. Ships crashed in silent fire across Deneb's shadow. The Vor Emperor watched from his darkened command chamber, hands clenched around his crown. They fight like demons, an aide whispered. No, they fight like they've done this before. The Emperor snarled. They're savages. The Archon-Seer, still calm amidst the ruin, replied. Savages don't write symphonies before they go to war. On the Eisenhower, a transmission arrived, open channel, raw and trembling. The Emperor's voice filled the air. Human! What have you done? You slaughter without provocation. Marcus leaned close to the comm. Provocation? You killed 800 civilians. We killed your arrogance. You claim justice? The Emperor spat. This is extermination. Not yet, Marcus said evenly. But I'm willing to negotiate the definition. He cut the transmission before the reply, his hand lingering on the console. For a moment, his reflection wavered in the glass. 1/2 soldier, 1/2 ghost. Send coordinates for Phase 2, he said quietly. The second phase was surgical. Human fleets moved like handwriting across space, each stroke deliberate, each pause intentional. They spared inhabited worlds, targeting only war engines and relay nodes. To the aliens watching from surviving stations, it looked less like war and more like punishment delivered by gods who remembered every slight. In the Emperor's chamber, alarms screamed as the capital's planetary shields buckled. Evacuate the royal sector! Shouted his guard. The Emperor stood frozen, staring at the ceiling as if the stars themselves had betrayed him. How, he whispered, can one small world do this? The seer's voice trembled with a truth she had never spoken aloud. Because they are many worlds pretending to be one. On the Eisenhower, Coates approached Marcus, her tone softer now. Sir, reports from the colonies. Some imperial cities are surrendering, sending peace signals. Good. A living witness carries more weight than a corpse, he said. Then, after a pause, transmit aid supplies once we secure orbit. And tell medical to prepare for mixed-species casualties. She blinked. We're helping them? He nodded. We're human. It's what confuses them most. Outside, the final Imperial dreadnought drifted into range. Marcus watched it turn slowly, its massive cannons glowing impotent, its crew broadcasting surrender in every known language. He closed his eyes and gave the order. Cease fire. The silence that followed was immense, larger than victory, heavier than grief. Through the viewport, Deneb glimmered over a field of wreckage that sparkled like new constellations. Humanity had remade the sky, one empire at a time. Marcus finally sat, exhaustion catching up with him. Report casualties, he said. Human fleet losses, 89. Civilian toll unknown. He exhaled. Every war starts with numbers. Every peace ends with names. Start collecting them. The bridge lights dimmed to half-glow. In that muted gold, faces looked older, almost reverent. For centuries, humanity had been the galaxy's curiosity, fragile, emotional, endlessly talkative. Tonight they had become its reckoning. A new signal crackled through the comm, a direct request from the Imperial capital. The Emperor, alive but cornered. "Human," he said, his voice raw. "You win. What now?" Marcus studied the void for a long time before answering. "Now? You live. You rebuild. You remember. You could erase us," the Emperor rasped. Marcus smiled faintly. "We could. But extinction's too easy. You'll learn more from fear than from ash." The Emperor's silence carried both hatred and awe. "You fight without joy," he said finally. "Joy's a luxury we traded for survival." When the transmission ended, Marcus turned to his crew. "Open channels to the Concord. Let them witness the treaty signing." Hours later, under the pale shimmer of Deneb's light, the Treaty of Reciprocity was broadcast across every frequency. Human and alien envoys met aboard a neutral station, its walls patched with damage, its air still thick with ozone. The Emperor, stripped of his regalia, faced Marcus across the table. "You could have killed us all," the Emperor said quietly. Marcus poured him a glass of water. "We almost did. Then we remembered what being human used to mean." The Emperor's claws trembled around the cup. "Mercy?" "Accountability," Marcus corrected. "But mercies included, limited supply." They signed. No applause followed, only the quiet hiss of pens against paper, a sound older than spaceflight. The moment carried the weight of civilizations realizing who truly held the upper hand. After the ceremony, Marcus stepped outside the station's viewport. The war's debris drifted like dust motes across the stars. Coates joined him, her voice hushed. "Was it worth it?" He didn't answer immediately. "Ask me when no one calls us monsters." "Do you think they ever will?" He smiled faintly. "Depends how long they remember the difference between fear and respect." A silence settled between them, soft and endless. Then, from the comms, a faint transmission filtered through, alien broadcasts, millions of voices, speaking one new phrase in unison. "Earth is awake." Marcus closed his eyes, letting the words wash over him like a prayer. "That's one way to say good morning." The Eisenhower turned slowly toward the blue shimmer of home, engines humming with restrained power. Behind it, the wreckage of empire drifted into the dark, and somewhere among the ruins, the Arkanseer whispered to her surviving kin. "Remember the smile that came before the storm. It was never joy, it was promise." Marcus looked back one last time. His reflection hovered against the window, half-lit, half-shadow, like humanity itself, split between mercy and memory. He whispered, almost to himself, "We never wanted gods. Just peace. But sometimes peace looks like thunder." As the Eisenhower leapt into faster-than-light, the starlight folded behind it, and the galaxy held its breath, watching, waiting, and wondering what humanity would smile at next.